Welcome to Between Two Psychs, a podcast where two psychologists and board-approved supervisors deep dive into many of the questions and challenges that provisional psychologists and early career therapists face as they progress into working more independently. Your hosts, Isabelle Tombleson and Claire Trevitt, talk about a range of topics, specifically relating to psychologists and therapists who are just starting out.
Yeah. So yes, like you and I were messaging a couple of years ago because Claire and I were talking about doing the podcast, and last year when the new competencies came out, Claire and I were like, AI and psychology, we need to get across this. And I'm like, I need to remember who that was. And it was you, David. So thank you so much for replying back to me and being so patient and being willing to come and have a chat with us.
That's my pleasure. Delighted to be here. It is my current obsession, for better or worse. I just want to also tell listeners that I do work with some AI companies. So I do have do some consulting, and I do have some affiliate type relationships. And so that might affect how you perceive some of the information in this presentation. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Yeah, so tell us tell us who you are, what your full name is. Do you have a practice? What are you doing? In this space?
Sure. My name's David Lopez. I'm a psychologist and board-approved supervisor. And up until I started doing AI, I've been really much more focused on supervising or 4+2s, 5+1s, having previously worked as a school psychologist, previously worked in private practice, EAP, wearing quite a few different kinds of hats. And I guess what I found towards the end of 2022 was that I was playing around with a few AI tools, early 2023, getting in contact with AI companies that I saw had different uses for psychologists, and got really excited about the possibilities, and then started talking to my supervisors, talking to other clinicians, asking that question of, what are you doing with AI? How are you able to make it work for you? And getting all these confused looks who were like wondering what on earth this has to do with their work. And it all being, I guess, a bit of a dead end, those conversations. And I got to thinking maybe I should be starting these conversations, building this community, making this something where we can know how to manage some of those ethical and responsible AI considerations. But I was also very mindful that I was a little bit more confident. I wouldn't consider myself technical in terms of knowledge of IT, but maybe a little bit more technically, digitally confident, I think, than many other.
Why is that? I'm curious.
Why did I feel like I was more? I guess just some family and friends and peers and colleagues I'd been around. I guess I felt like I was helping them with things. I was very tech curious. And so I just thought this is something that
interest. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I was just curious. I'm like, was he in the IT world before he was a psychologist? You know how some of us have had careers before we landed in this career? I was like, I wonder if blend somewhere.
Incidentally, I was previously in banking, in finance, before I left that world to then continue my psych, which I'd started with. That was a whole other space that I was in, but I felt like I could bring this degree of curiosity and know-how and asking all those questions that I felt like everyone needed to have asked. And so I contacted lawyers to get them to do legal projects and presentations around AI with me to better understand some of the legalities, get in contact with professional associations and asking them questions. And then they told me to get a consultant to have my own advice process. I guess I've been really quite rigorous in thinking how do we connect the dots so that clinicians can become more confident, because there is so much at stake here in doing it, because public trust requires that we have the answers before we're managing client data in a particular way. So I just felt like I had the ability to connect some of those dots, but because through my Psychology Squared support for provisional psychologists and digital social media presence, I also had that ability to get the messages out there and to run things and to have people find out about them.
Okay, so does that mean, and please forgive me for my ignorance and for the obvious lack of preparation for this chat, but so you've got Psychology Squared. Did that come from when you were a supervisor, from being a supervisor initially and just really wanting to nurture prof psychs and things?
Yeah.
And now, and do you have another community or something now? Like that's an AI. I swear I've seen something.
Yeah, I completely appreciate the confusion around all the different business areas and communities. Psychology Squared was initially my space for supporting provisional psychologists and clinicians with some products and supervision and what was necessary to be able to get through the internship, but also some resources like risk assessments, sleep assessments, and tools to help clinicians be able to better do what they're doing. But then I've started the business, which is specifically AI for clinicians, and that is a part of Psychology Squared. And so a lot of all my AI stuff is under that business. But the community, there's the AI for Australian Psychologists Facebook group, which is free. Anyone can join.
Hang on,
And
say it again. Say it.
AI
for
for Australian Psychology. It says by Psychology Squared. So again, appreciate the confusion. But that's the Facebook group where I'm posting of like new hints and tips and features and events. And if I see a news article or a Channel 7 news about a new AI tool, that's where I'm sharing those tidbits.
Okay.
Okay, and
yeah, so you're building that community on with social media and Facebook, and I'm guessing you must have a website or something, like another way for people to get resources as well.
yeah, so I guess all the AI stuff is through aiforclin.com. And so that's how you can see the AI things that I'm doing. But there is one final piece to the puzzle. My one thing, if I'm to say one thing that I am now, is to keep things simple. It's a circle community, which is through this platform called Circle, which is basically for AI clinicians and others who are interested in the AI for clinician space. Meaning that we're posting up events, posting up resources. I've just released a new AI consent form that's been informed by the Code of Conduct and a whole lot of other sort of areas that you'd want your consent form to be informed by, the Australian Commission on Safety and Quality in Healthcare, and an APRA page, and got a law firm to produce that. Developing resources that I think are necessary for this space, in addition to a video, which is one on when you have a client who doesn't know anything about AI, that you can play for them as they're walking in, which is, hey, this is what AI is all about. It's what you need to know, and talk to your clinician if you need to know more, but also be running events, putting them up, having talks, need to know on the latest new tools, new updates on the tools you're using, and changes.
Like we were using practice management software and we were using AI, and then there was an update and we're all going, what does this mean?
So I guess it's promoting a space where those conversations can happen. But the real problem with Facebook and other social media is that once that post goes up, if the algorithm loves it, then it gets a bit of traction and then disappears into the abyss pretty much. Yes, it's still there, but no one really goes to find things that were not the most recent posts in that way.
So what you've made is a website called Circle, and it's like a professional platform for us to connect and receive resources and comment and
So I've subscribed to Circle to create a templatized community using it as my community builder.
Oh, wow. So is that Circle is like WordPress?
I guess in a sense, because WordPress I see as being a general website templatized, like just for any website, whereas this is specifically for community building, meaning that to be able to see all the conversations that you can see posts. If you go into the post space, I probably do need to make this a bit better organized, but if you go into the post space and you want to see all the conversations in relation to ethics and compliance, you just click there and you can see all the conversation in one place. And so similarly, if you've got Xander or Heidi, soon you'll be able to click and then see all of the conversation there, or to put up a post and choose what topic so that others can find that more easily. And so it just means that the algorithm isn't as front and center, and it's about what you want to see today, more meaningful sort of interactions with members who are more interested in the space.
And you can go back and I could go back through the archive, like it's not going to disappear. I find that sometimes when I find resources like on Psychology Today and things like that, I'm like, that was a really good article that I read years ago. I'd really like to go back and find that. Can't find it anywhere.
Yeah, no, it should be a lot easier. There's a search area, and the compartmentalized discussion with the topic should make that all a lot easier. But if it's something that's important, we could be putting it into the resources, for example, and I'll be adding courses all the time on need to know with getting started, ethics, how to use this tool, how to use that tool. And there was even a recent event just this week, which was a LinkedIn for clinicians featuring AI, because AI is a part of LinkedIn use. And so, yeah, just seeing what the interest is. I'm hoping to do one on neurodivergence and AI, because there are some really important issues in that neurodivergent space.
But also resources and tools that I'm learning are brilliant as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's where I see this all coming together, because then it means you're not just on top of things today, you'll be on top of things going forward and be able to interact with others, collaborate with others, hear what others are doing. And it's just a space where every 5 minutes things are changing.
My mind is then seeing you go through all of this. I realize now, like what you've done with Circle is you've created like a forum, but it's an
Yes.
organized, professional, easy to use forum. That is so exciting. And I really want to start supporting your initiative around this. I guess I've just 2026 now, 4 years later. I've been doing the podcast with Claire, and that was a massive learning curve for both of us. Neither of us really knew what we were doing. And I'm so proud of us that we've led by example. I don't even really care too much if it's very successful. I just want to role model to other psychologists and to my supervisees. Be brave and do stuff and learn stuff. Just because you haven't done it before, it doesn't mean you can't do it. And I feel like it's the same with AI, but there's even more of a weight with AI though. I think because of the way that it is going to change how everyone does everything in pretty much every profession, and because of the ethical implications we have with what we do. If we don't get on top of it now, we're going to blink and 10 years are going to pass. And I don't want to be where I was 4 years ago and not know what anything is. Yeah, I just think it's very exciting space. And that's why I'm so pleased to have you come and chat. Now, when you just took me through that, you shared your screen, that was actually brilliant. And I think that people who are watching the podcast on YouTube would love to see that. And it's really funny. Like, I don't see this as a like promotional thing. Like and I want to be really clear with our listeners. I'm not receiving any benefits by having you on the show. The benefit that I am getting from having you on the show is that I'm learning, and I love learning. And I just hope that everyone is also going to enjoy learning from listening to you, David. And if anyone does go to the links that I will share to your website and your resources, we're not getting anything for doing that. It's just really lovely to be able to share this knowledge.
Thank you. And yeah, I really appreciate being here. And huge congrats for getting the podcast off the ground and keeping up with it. I think that is a huge achievement in its own right. And a lot more work, listeners note, it's a lot more work than it looks, getting it all ready to go and sounding as coherent as it does and drawing an interest in all of that. So yeah, really appreciate the work that you do.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. So now I feel like you've helped me to get the lay of the land with what you're doing. So now I'm going to see if I can ask a few questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
So thinking about the role of AI in practice currently in psychology. So what we are experiencing now in our professional community is the main impact of AI is that we have practice management software that's enabling us to record our voices and then produce a transcript, which then can help us produce notes. Is that correct?
The simple answer is yes. Just to add a little bit of nuance to it, that some of the tools are practice management software, some are just AI scribe or ambient scribe, however you want to call them, and not practice management as well. But in terms of serving that main purpose of helping clinicians get their notes and reports just about an instantly generated first draft, that I think is the bottom line for most clinicians worldwide when it comes to AI use, because the admin of those notes and reports takes hours over the week, and this helps them get very far along very quickly.
Like I do think I'm there at work and I'm manually typing my notes and I'm going, I know that there are things that could be helping me with this. I can feel it in my hands. I get tired after a day of writing notes and things. What would you say what are the pros and cons of these services that we have the ability to pay for to help us? Like, obviously the pros are that it saves our physical energy and out. But are there any other pros, do you think? And then could we go through maybe what some of the cons could be?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I do appreciate that there are pros and cons. And I do always to bring the full perspective to these discussions, which I think is really helpful and necessary before you subscribe. So the other major pro, I think, is that you're likely to have your template, your note or report that's generated be more comprehensive, because when you are providing all those headings of how you would like your note or report to look, I would guess 80 to 90% of clinicians, it's going to likely lead to there being a whole lot more detail and diligence through that process. Now, on the flip side, I do want to also recognize that there is a complacency risk that comes with that, because it's all too easy and it's just so easy to quick glance and be done with that note and report because of how easy it was. But nonetheless, I think the fact that if you set up your note and report template, it can lead to this being covering a lot more detail, maybe more information that you might not have remembered in the session then becomes a part of that.
That's an interesting thing to bring up. Yeah, so because when we're not using AI, like when we're doing it old school now, we are relying on our memory. So like often many of us will take some sort of tool to jot down things as we're having sessions with our consumers on that, and then we rely on our memory to write our notes afterwards. Yeah. So there would be a lot more detail. So I'm guessing, and like for me, straight away I think, wow, I could really reflect on my sessions a little bit comprehensively reading the transcript, couldn't I?
You could. Do bear in mind, like, the transcripts are often generated as a part of this process, but I think there are some different opinions to what degree the transcript that gets utilized ends up being a part of the note or all or not. That's a whole discussion in and of itself. But yes, being able to see the transcript and then be able to use it to then reflect, for example, as a supervision type exercise and self-learning exercise, that's certainly helpful.
Like if I feel like it was a session that where there was things that I noticed that I wanted to work on. Either the session didn't flow as well as I thought it was going to, or I might not have delivered something as well as I could have, but just based on the response of the consumer. That would be so useful to be able to, like video recording. I think we were always encouraged where we could, when we worked in services that allowed it, to record our sessions, to video record our sessions, so that we could watch ourselves back and learn through observing ourselves. Yeah, you could almost do that a little bit if you were having the AI recording transcripts there. I love that idea. But you were saying as well that the benefit of it is because it's capturing everything. We're not just relying on our memory when we're writing notes, and that's a good thing. In your experience with exploring the ethics around this, are there any like negative consequences to having so much information in our notes?
Of being that comprehensive, look, again, this might be venturing into a little bit of a legal question.
Yeah, I'm just curious, we don't.
Yeah. Look, all that I would say is that it might be helpful to get legal advice around whether, as opposed to a best practice level of notes, if you have a even more comprehensive, to what degree that might lead to unnecessary exposure. I don't know. Again, that's an interesting question. I'm not going to suggest that's an answer, but I do think that there's probably a best practice amount of notes. And yeah, if it is becoming copious notes, that I guess I could see that being a problem to some degree as well. But can I just come back to the AI for supervision kind of idea, if that's all right? I just want to add something to that, which is that when you have an AI tool like the scribes that have a chatbot within them. So do you want me to explain what that means, perhaps?
Yeah.
So if you think of what a chatbot is, like ChatGPT, you type into it, you have a bit of a conversation, and you can have that back and forth. And it's very conversational. Within an AI scribe, if you can imagine that you can talk to your notes, ask questions with it, being able to draw on all the notes about that client, past reports. This is again one of my other most exciting uses of AI. You can ask questions like, what are some key themes across our session so far? Or what are some questions that could be asked or that should be asked that haven't yet been asked? Really, it's about your creativity here and what you can come up with here, which is probably one of the most exciting uses, really, because you can better connect with clients, better understand them, better work towards your goals by prompting with that ability to be informed by the client information.
Wow. Wow. Are there any ethics around that? And I hope you don't mind me asking tricky
Yeah.
questions today, just around, because I've been thinking about how you hear in the news, in media, that people are using ChatGPT as a therapist. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm not worried about doing ourselves out of our job. Actually, I'd be happy if we could do ourselves out of a job. I do want to hear more. I would like
Yeah.
that a lot. I would like us to not need psychologists, but oh man, I worry about people using ChatGPT because it's not designed to look after people's mental health. And so then you're talking about an inbuilt chatbot in the notes that's helping you to do your job as a therapist. Has anyone talked about the ethics around that at all in the community?
I mean, there are a few different angles. In terms of the chatbot within the tools, I don't think people are as concerned about that risk within the AI scribes. In terms of for like therapy bot purposes, there's a lot of discussion about concerns. There have even been some terrible situations where people have, I think generally children and adolescents, use some of these mainstream tools like ChatGPT and have even committed suicide as a result of the interactions with them, which is really quite tragic. And I think best practice around those tools is that they have risk-related guardrails and that they're evidence-based and that they're clinician overseen, all of that kind of thing.
Yeah, it will be really interesting space to watch in, as I said, I keep talking about the next 10 years, but I just feel like things are going to explode. And I am aware that there are some organizations, some university organizations and some independent organizations that are working on therapist AI tools now. So yeah, it's good to be aware of it. And yeah, I think it's really great for us to just talk about how we need to be really careful if we do have consumers telling us that they're using general chatbot AIs to get help for mental health, that we just caution them away from that. But sorry, we got off track a little bit. You mentioned the chatbot with the scribe and it just made me think, oh, but it sounds like we don't need to be too concerned ethically around using the chatbot in the what do you call it, the scribe, the transcript.
The AI scribe, yeah, within that system. Look, okay, good practice could be something like where you're explaining in your consent form, for example, what tools you're using and then what features there might be within that kind of tool. But again, I'm not otherwise aware of other kinds of ethical issues. Once you've already got permission to use that scribe, once the client's comfortable with it, this is to be able to better work with them. So I think it's a helpful discussion as part of your consent process for your clients to be aware of what you're able to do. But there is actually one other really exciting use as well as a part of that chatbot use that I'd like to let you know about as well.
Yes.
And that is for that one client who you've got, or many clients you've got, who might have those very particular unique interests and strengths, particular quirks, particular ways of working, and to be able to get better ideas of working with them. What could be exercises? What could be analogies? What could be stories you could dissect based on their presentation? These are all things that could also be entered into the chatbot that's informed by your client information to better connect with them. So, that client who loves Batman, that client who loves Harry Potter or trains, to be able to come up with more relatable stories and discussion and activities. That's what really excites me as well in this space.
Wow, like relationship building, rapport building hints.
Yeah, but it's also therapeutic in its own right, because whatever therapeutic goal you're trying to achieve, because if you asked your chatbot to come up with ideas for working with the client, you're trying to build self-confidence, who loves Batman.
I get it now. Yes, yes. Weaving in their unique interests and qualities into
Yes,
the designing of the interventions.
yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, that is exciting. So there are tools that are doing that currently that you can do that with currently.
Any of the ones with chatbots can do that. Ones that come to mind with that could be, of course, there's Heidi, which is the biggest well-known one. I'm also aware of Everbility that has that. And Bastion GPT is very much like a chatbot. And that is also able to have that flexibility, but it also is ascribed to.
Bastion. So Heidi, Bastion, and you mentioned another one as well.
Everbility.
Everbility.
Yeah.
I'll have to, when we go to do this transcript for this, I'll have to look that up to make sure.
Yeah.
transcribes it properly. Okay. So yeah, and thank you so much for sharing the names of those specific things, because it is something I would like to at least look at them and see what they do, especially if I have a provisional psychologist who comes to me to say that their organization lets them use it. Interested in using it. I, as a supervisor, would just like really love to know what they're talking about. And because of I'm not saying that I'm not old, but because I am a millennial, I feel more like Gen X, because I'm more at that end of the generation. I do feel like I just get behind so quickly. If I allow myself to just get sucked into like the world of my work and I don't come up for air, blink an eye, I'll miss like 10 new things that have happened in technology.
100%. Look, but just bear in mind, I do think we've got to be forgiving of that and also not expecting ourselves to be on top of every area in which this is going. And that's okay. Right?
Am I hearing that from you, David? You're even someone like me who is across everything can't actually be across everything all the time.
No, I don't think anyone can, but at the same time, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of tools that are clinical like that are hard to know whether we could or should use. And I really do want to appreciate here that I think with AI, we're on skates. We're on rockets compared to how fast things have been moving in other technologies, other intervention modalities, other ways of working in the space. As a result, I really do think we should be kind to ourselves around our expectations.
Okay. Now, I want to go back to, we were talking about the pros of using some of the AI technology that's available to us as psychologists and as therapists too. This is not just for psychologists, anyone who's doing therapy. What about consequences? What are some of the things that we have to think about when we're using this sort of stuff? And you already mentioned consent, client consent,
Yeah.
verbal, and having a good written consent forms to include your use of AI. Is there anything else?
Just within the consent process, I just do want to also highlight potential nuances around children being involved in the process, for example, or individuals who may have cognitive impairment, for example, or your clients who may struggle to understand AI. Again, it's a whole space to be having and figuring this out, good practice around consent in those areas. There's also, look, it depends on what the tool is that we're talking about and how it's going to be used. So there'll be some, let's just say, for example, use of ChatGPT to generate a presentation that you're going to go off and do in a school. And previously, you didn't use AI. This year, you think you will, and you're wondering, hold on, do I need to get permission? What does that look like? How do I bill if I was previously billing this way? Is it still ethical for me to bill in the same way? Using AI tools for research has also come up now, which then raises a whole lot of questions around one's research process and how that should be. And yeah, I think the general public at the moment are very unaware of, I mean, sure, AI in general, but just also what does it mean for clinicians? And so I do think we really do need to be very clear on the pros and the cons, the main uses, if things change over time, what does that mean for our conversation?
Wow, it's not just consequences, these are cautions. These are things that we need to be like thinking quite carefully about, which is the whole reason why I got you to come and meet with me today. So just to summarize what you said then, so we've got to be thinking about who we're going to be using AI with. So
Yeah.
consent, like ability to consent, and for people to understand what they're consenting to. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, look, if someone, like just if someone is even just an average adult with no necessarily any cognitive impairment diagnosed or formally or informally or informally or other implications, I just don't know that everyone is across what we're using AI for. So I almost think if I was going to go into a private practice situation or something, or even start wanting to recommend to my government employees like how we're going to use AI, I think there would need to be so much. I would want to educate so much, and I don't know if I'm like being like silly or something, but
Mhm.
feel like I'd be going above and beyond wanting to explain to my consumers what AI is and how I could be using it, that I could be using it to help me research around best practice interventions for particular symptoms or presentations, or indeed that I could be using it to help me to write my letter back to your GP. Yeah, I think like maybe I can understand why you've made that video now that you can show, because that makes sense that you would have a resource like that so that you wouldn't have to spend 2 whole sessions or something just explaining the AI in the world now. But yeah, the cautious part of me like goes into overdrive when I think about all of that. And I apologize for that, but I'm sure I'm not the only one who's freaking out.
I think many psychologists understandably want to do it right, want to do it responsibly and ethically. And I think we're probably more attuned to that kind of thinking and cautiousness than many other kinds of professionals. I think we have to go with our gut with trusting that concern. But at the same time, we've got to understand what is acceptable by getting those answers, by engaging in conversations with lawyers, with industry, with professional advisors, and better understand the space in that way. But and in the issues today are going to be different tomorrow when privacy laws might be different. But just coming back to your original point there about talking to clients and other peers in government and all of that, where we need to also be mindful, whilst at the same time, we need to be clear and transparent as a goal and sufficiently explanatory and ensuring they sufficiently understand on the one hand. On the other hand, going into too much depth and making things too complex can have problems as well that then clients and everyone want to opt out. So it's about finding the right balance so that acceptable use, meaningful use can occur whilst balancing the need for adequate explanation.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, we don't want to create necessary barriers for people to access treatment. Oh, so interesting. Okay, so what about, are there any other consequences or cautions for us to consider if we're wanting or if we are using these AI tools?
100%. And look, there are lots of them. And one of the main ones that we haven't yet discussed is the potential for mistakes and hallucinations, they call them, where AI makes up something. That's a term being used in the space. That's not the psych space. It's when AI comes up with something that didn't actually happen. That's a really important part of the editing and refining process. So when you're using an AI scribe to develop your note or report, an absolutely critical, unavoidable part of your process has got to be going through it with a fine tooth comb to ensure nothing's made up, nothing's added, nothing's not like incorrect, but also, and what I think is really important and not talked about enough, is that also you want it to be reflecting your clinical voice and feeling like you are still a part of that note in the same way that you would have been before. But there's one other added nuance to this, which I think is quite interesting, but also leads to a lot of editing, is how AI can use bad language that we don't use in conversation. You'll notice from using ChatGPT and various other tools, that it's all over the place, that kind of language. For example, you might have heard on the radio, about being encouraged to unlock your potential at the gym or elevate your car's performance with a mechanic. So it's just, this is not how we talk. This is not how words go together. And so there's that fixing as well.
Okay. So just like looking for the like sentences that are like we would obviously not have written ourselves in that way.
Yes, that's another problem.
Yeah, and then the hallucinations is really interesting to me. And I like that you've shared that, because now if I was ever going to have experience with these types of programs, that would help me to be extra cautious. Now that you've shared that, I'm like, I'm going to be aware there is this thing that happens where where the chatbot enters in stuff that didn't happen. I wonder how frequently that happens. Do you know, is it reported how frequently that happens?
I'm not so aware of statistics on that, but I imagine it could vary depending on the tool that you're using, the model that's behind the tools that you're using. There are ways to manage that, of course, other than just checking, which is the most obvious one. Believe it or not, there can be AI tools to help with correcting and checking, which again, a whole other interesting debate in its own right. But I think it's one of those things that undoubtedly over time, as the tools get more sophisticated, you would think that the error rates would be coming down. But again,
if you could program the chatbot, because you can do that with ChatGPT. You can tell ChatGPT how you want it to respond and that sort of thing. I wonder if you could program it to say to make it extra careful to not add in things that weren't explicit in the transcript or something.
I think you can try that sort of thing. I've heard of mixed success with it. What I have also heard of where you might ask your chatbot to be clear on its confidence and not to guess.
Nice. That's a good prompt. Yeah, yeah. Be clear on its confidence and and not guess. I like that. Thank you for that hint. And I suppose these are the types of things that you would see if you were to join your community. Would these be the sorts of questions that people would be posting and discussions that people would be having, do you think?
Yeah, look, we're having questions and like discussions all the time around what are some issues, and these would be perfect for that space for sure. But yeah, conversations have been, I think, a bit more ethical at the moment, but and around some new tools. But definitely there will be much of this kind of conversation, which I'm hoping to grow.
Okay, okay. All right. I'm mindful of the time. This is such a rich discussion. Are there any other consequences that we should be made aware of in this chat today?
Sure. So the data security issue is a significant one too that we need to be mindful of so that we're putting in client information into a tool. So let's just think pre-AI.
Mm.
Practice management software was where this was happening. Clinicians would be sticking all their client information into their Galaxy, into their Clinico, and that information would be what we think of as the notes, where reports would go, where the client file exists. If there was a subpoena, that's where you would go to to get the information. Now, you would have confidence in putting client information into practice management software because the tools are at least espousing to be compliant with Australian privacy principles. And from my understanding, again, please don't take my information as legal advice, but again, my understanding is that what's also driving our confidence in the use of AI tools is that when they are saying that they're confident with Australian privacy principles as well, that we may be more comfortable with you putting client information into such an AI tool that knows how to manage that information in a compliant way. Now, I would like to see the day come that we have the industry doing some external auditing so that we can know that they're doing what they say that they're doing, and all sorts of traffic light systems so that we can evaluate different kinds of tools and make the choice based on how well we think they're treating our data. That's something that we value. So that to me does need to be a part of the conversation as to what's happening with client information. And there are lots of other major considerations. For example, where's the data being held? Is it being held in Australia or overseas? Is often an important part of that conversation as well. And how do we explain to clients what is happening with their data so that they can have some confidence and have some autonomy and choice around what ends up happening with their data.
So would we be able to find that information on like particular organizations' websites? I'm guessing we would be able to read about that if we were thinking about using their service.
Yeah, so any of the AI scribes that you're going to use will undoubtedly mention what level of compliance they have, where they have gone and checked their compliance. So for example, if they're only okay for America, they might have gone through like the HIPAA compliance process or GDPR for Europe or APP, Australian Privacy Principles for Australia. So that's something they should be putting up or that you should be checking. But at the moment, from my understanding, it is more self-report. I have also put on my AI for Clin website, there is a comparison table of the tools that I'm aware of that are self-reporting to be compliant for Australia. You can go onto that site and click on the comparison table link, which I believe is at the top left of the site, to be able to then see the tools and compare the different features.
That's very handy to know. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that one, David, because I think that could be useful for all of us, especially knowing that it comes from a source like yourself. You are yourself a registered practicing therapist. So it's that helps it to feel a bit more reliable, to know that there's someone who has done a comparison for us.
That's all provided by the companies, bear in mind. So I got in touch with them and asked them to fill them out so that I could put it all there.
And then you've compiled it and put it together for us.
Yeah.
It's the source location. All right. Knowing that we're having this chat today and that we're going to share this chat with our listeners, is there anything else that you just really want listeners to hear today that's important or worth us knowing before we finish up?
Sure. Look, I think the AI space is really life-changing for many clinicians. I think it's something that is really inspiring and allows us to connect with clients, have more time with our clients, be more mindful, be more present, have more time in our week and all of that. But I really hope that it clears headspace and allows for clinicians to see their work in a whole new light, to really appreciate their work and be able to do more because you have that assistance. And I think we're going to see new technologies that will be changing how we're going to work over time. So I think, for example, there's been a virtual reality that's been out for a few years, but that's also going to become much more sophisticated as AI gets more sophisticated over time. We'll see tools that will be able to be better working for preventative purposes, no doubt. We'll see assessments become more interactive over time. I think we'll also see some really exciting new areas around, say, preventative health with dashboarding, where we can be better tracking how we're going and managing our progress over time from both physical and mental health. That's also a really exciting space.
Yeah, that would be amazing. It makes me think of this topic I was considering the other day, where I was trying to find what the statistics are on whether or not we are helping Australians when they're coming to us under like a Medicare mental health plan. And that data there's not much. I did a little bit of a search online, and we know how many people are accessing it. We know more and more people are accessing our services, but I'm really curious to know whether or not we're making a difference. Is what we're doing really helping? We know randomized controlled trials tell us what treatments are gold standard, and if we apply them as per their protocols, we could safely assume that things are going well. And if we're doing our thing where we're doing our pre, during, and post measures, and we're capturing that data on a case-by-case basis, we can probably see if we're helping. Wouldn't it be great if there was some sort of AI technology that could compile all of that information and really help guide us, like what is working, how is it that we're helping, and is there other ways that we could be working to better improve what we're doing for the whole community?
Yeah, absolutely. And these are all likely to be able to be assisted with AI. I have seen, obviously, we have the ability to use tracking outcome measures that have already been available for years, of course. That's quantifiable, that's usable. We can also be using the transcripts to be checking how things have been going with the clients as well, if we want something that's more quantitative. And there are also AI tools. I was talking to a company last week before who can understand people's emotions and mood from the voice, how the voice sounds in a very sort of objective way. That's not something that you can fake. And so it's really every 5 minutes where there's something that takes you off in a new direction, makes you think in a way that you were not realizing would be possible. Yeah. Can you imagine the possibilities of being able to have an assessment or even having a scribe that can be looking at what's going on there? So you've got these insights around the session. There are some tools that have that.
Helping us to pick up on more nuances than what we might be otherwise, because we have our own brain and our own organism that we're dealing with while we're engaging. And that you used the word assistant before. It's like having an assistant in the room, but an assistant that's allowed to be in the room helping us, because it's not another person that's then going to go and share that private information elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And the real question is, how do we use it? How do we use it in a way that's going to be most helpful for our clients, but also can be helpful in the ways that we work, and striking all those balances that we've been talking about today as a part of that process.
Thanks, David. Thank you so much for chatting today. And I might need to get you back, because I have a feeling there might be some benefit to us having some more chats as we progress with our knowledge and our uptake of AI.
Sure, absolutely. No, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to be on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating. It really helps others find the show. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Between Two Psychs for more updates and resources. For more information and to explore everything we offer, head over to our website, betweentwopsychs.com.au. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time.